My sister stabbed me in the back and wed my wealthy fiancé. 7 years later, she boasted she'd won everything. I grinned and said, "Oh. Have you met my husband yet? Have you ever had that unsettling feeling? That deep-seated gut instinct that the universe is finally going to reveal a truth so immense, so undeniable, that it will change everything?" That was me. Standing there, at my mother's burial, heart heavy with grief, but with this bizarre, almost electric calm washing over me. I was waiting. Waiting for her. And believe me, the look on her face when she finally realized who I had married. Priceless. You just know what's coming next, don't you? It had been 7 excruciating years. 7 hard years since Odora, my own sister, had cruelly snatched Darius, my millionaire fiancé, the man I believed was my entire future. I hadn't seen either of them since that day. But now, as they finally walked through those doors, Odora flaunting her typical smug smile and that huge diamond ring, she had no idea what kind of reception was waiting for her. She had no idea how much my world had changed. My mother. She was always the anchor of our family, the quiet force that held everything together. Growing up in our small house outside Boston, Mom instilled in me strength, dignity. Our bond was special, it just deepened with every passing year. Even after I moved into my own apartment in downtown Boston and started my career as a marketing executive, I called her almost daily. She was my confidant, my counsel, my biggest cheerleader. So when Mom was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer 8 months ago, my world crumbled. Despite aggressive treatments, we both knew time was running out. But Mom faced it all with this incredible grace, more concerned with us than her own pain. Her final weeks were peaceful, surrounded by loved ones in the home where she raised us. She slipped away, clutching my hand, whispering a promise that I would find serenity in my life. 6 years before that, when I was 31, my life looked perfect on paper. Great career, amazing friends, a beautiful apartment. But there was a void. I worked 60-plus-hour weeks, dated casually, but nothing ever stuck. Then, through my college friend Alina, I met Darius Rowan at a charity event. Darius was magnetic. Charming, captivating, with a smile that just lit up the room. He was 37, a self-made digital millionaire, the kind of success story business magazines drooled over. Our connection was instant. We both loved art, travel, setting ambitious goals. After our first date, at an expensive restaurant overlooking the water, I called Mom, practically giddy. "Mom," I remember exclaiming, "I've met someone special." Our romance skyrocketed. Weekend getaways to Martha's Vineyard, symphony nights, exclusive dinners, it became our routine. Darius was attentive, generous, always surprising me with thoughtful gifts, planning elaborate dates. After 16 months, he proposed. A massive, 6-carat diamond ring. On a private yacht. In Boston Harbor. I said yes without a second thought. My parents were over the moon, especially Mom. She immediately started picturing the perfect wedding. Darius had the means to make any dream a reality, and Mom insisted we spare no expense. Then there was Odora. My younger sister, just 2 years my junior. Our relationship had always been complicated. Growing up, we were close, yes, but there was this constant, simmering competition. If I had something, she wanted it. Toys, friends, attention. If I achieved something, she had to match it or somehow surpass it. Mom always tried to keep the peace, giving each of us individual time. Despite our history, I chose Odora as my maid of honor. Mom said it would bring us closer, and I truly wanted to believe that, as adults, we had grown past juvenile jealousy. When I first introduced Odora to Darius at a family dinner, she absolutely showered him with praise. I noticed her caressing his arm as she laughed at his jokes, but I dismissed it as Odora's typical charming, outgoing behavior. Our engagement party was at my parents' beautiful colonial home. Odora helped Mom with everything, stringing fairy lights, arranging flowers. Throughout the evening, I'd catch her staring at Darius across the room, but when our eyes met, she'd quickly grin and raise her glass to me. Later that night, as guests were leaving, Mom approached me in the kitchen. "Wendy, dear," she said, carefully arranging leftover appetizers, "Odora seems quite taken with Darius." "She's just being friendly, Mom," I replied, washing champagne flutes. "Besides, she's dating Edric, that pharmaceutical rep." Mom nodded, but didn't look convinced. "Just be careful, honey. You know how your sister can be when she sees something she likes." I kissed her cheek, reassuring her. "We're adults now, Mom. Odora's happy for me." "I'm sure of it." Oh, how devastatingly, horribly wrong I was. 3 months before the wedding, I started noticing subtle shifts in Darius. He worked later, often texting at odd hours, always with the excuse of international clients. Our regular Friday date nights were suddenly cancelled due to emergency meetings. When we were together, he seemed distracted, constantly checking his phone, only giving me half his attention. More disturbingly, he started criticizing things about me he used to adore. My laughter was suddenly too loud in public. My favorite blue dress, which he'd always complimented, now made me look washed out. Even my habit of reading before bed, which he once found sweet, now bothered him because the light kept him awake. Meanwhile, Odora started calling more frequently, always asking about wedding details. "I just want everything to be perfect for my big sister," she'd say, even though Mom was handling most of the organizing. Odora even offered to attend vendor meetings that I couldn't make due to work. One Thursday evening, Darius and I were at an upscale Italian restaurant. He barely made eye contact, answering my work stories with one-word replies. When his phone rang for the 5th time, I'd had enough. "Is there something more important going on elsewhere?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light despite my growing irritation. "Sorry, just work stuff," he said, placing his phone face down. "You know how it is before a product launch." Later that week, while doing laundry, I noticed a strange perfume on Darius's collar. It was floral, heavy, nothing like the light scent I wore. When confronted, Darius explained he'd spent the day in meetings with a potential investor, Wendy Mills, who wore strong perfume and had embraced him goodbye. The explanation seemed plausible. I wanted to believe him. The next morning, I met my friend Alina for coffee, sharing my concerns. "Every relationship gets pre-wedding jitters," Alina said, stirring her cappuccino. "Parker and I fought constantly the month before our wedding, and now we've been married 5 years. But the knot in my gut refused to loosen." Mom noticed my unease at our weekly dinner. "You seem distracted, sweetheart," she murmured, reaching across the table. "Wedding stress, or something else?" I mustered a smile. "Just finalizing the arrangements. Everything's fine." But everything was not fine. I started trying harder, wondering if I'd been taking Darius for granted. I booked a spa day, bought new lingerie, cooked his favorite meals. The harder I tried, the more aloof he became. Then came the cake tasting appointment, which Darius had been looking forward to for weeks. That morning, he called, claiming an unexpected investor meeting. "Odora can join you," he said. "She knows my preferences anyway." My heart sank. How did my sister know my fiancé's cake preferences better than I did? Still, I accepted, telling myself it was fine. The next day, cleaning Darius's car before a dinner party, I found something. An earring. Wedged between the passenger seat and the center console. A dangling silver earring with a tiny sapphire. I recognized it instantly. It was Odora's. My sister had worn those exact earrings to my engagement party, a gift from our grandmother. When I showed Darius the earring that evening, his expression was eerily composed. "Oh, your sister must have dropped it when I gave her a ride to the florist last week," he rasped. "She mentioned losing an earring." "You never told me you drove Odora to the florist," I replied, barely above a whisper. "Didn't I? It must have slipped my mind. It wasn't important." When I called Odora, her story matched his exactly. Too perfect. "Oh, thank goodness. I've been looking everywhere for that earring. Darius was kind enough to drive me since my car was in the shop." That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind raced. Had they coordinated their stories? Was I just paranoid? My weight plummeted from stress, dark bags formed under my eyes. I started seeing a therapist, without telling Darius. 3 weeks before the wedding, Darius suggested we postpone. "I'm worried about you, Wendy. You haven't been yourself lately. Maybe we're rushing things." I broke down, begging him to tell me what was wrong, what I'd done, how I could fix it. He embraced me, assuring me everything was all right, but his eyes were vacant. That night, I woke at 3 a.m. to find Darius's side of the bed empty. From the hallway, I heard his whispered words coming from the guest bedroom, "Not now. She'll hear us." I know. Soon, I promise." The next day, I planned to surprise Darius with lunch at his office. My father, Kelsey, called just as I was leaving my apartment. "Wendy, are you eating properly? Your mother says you've lost too much weight. We're concerned." "I'm fine, Dad. Just pre-wedding jitters. I'm actually bringing Darius lunch right now." "Good. That boy better be treating my daughter like a queen. If only he knew." The security guard at Darius's building recognized me and waved me through with a smile. On the elevator ride to the 12th floor, I checked my reflection, trying to smooth the worry creases that had formed between my brows. My lunch bag held Darius's favorite sandwich from the deli across from my work. When I arrived at the reception area, Darius's secretary, Morel, looked up from her computer, her eyes widening in surprise. "Wendy, we weren't expecting you today." Her gaze flickered to Darius's closed office door, then back to me. "Darius is in a meeting right now." "That's okay," I replied, lifting the lunch bag. "I just brought him lunch. I can wait." Morel immediately blocked my path. "Actually, he specifically asked not to be disturbed. Perhaps I could let him know you're here." Something about her anxious demeanor screamed at me. "Is he alone in there, Morel?" Her hesitancy told me everything. Before she could react, I moved past her and opened Darius's office door. I will never forget that scene. Darius was leaning against his desk, hands on my sister's waist, her arms wrapped around his neck, their lips locked in a passionate kiss. Neither noticed me at first, giving me agonizing seconds to process every detail. Odora's skirt pushed up. Darius's hand on her back. The sickening familiarity in their embrace spoke of countless previous encounters. When the door clicked shut behind me, they sprang apart. 3 frozen faces in a scene of horror. "Wendy," Darius blurted, immediately adjusting his tie. "This isn't what it looks like." Odora didn't even try such a blatant falsehood. Instead, she raised her chin defiantly. "We didn't plan this. It just happened." The calm that flooded over me was unexpected. "How long?" I asked. Darius looked at Odora, then back at me. "Wendy, let's talk about this privately." "How long?" My voice stayed firm. 4 months, Odora said. "Since the engagement party." 4 months. Nearly half our engagement. While I was picking out wedding invitations and floral arrangements, they had betrayed me. Darius stepped behind his desk, distancing himself physically, as if preparing for a business meeting. "I didn't mean for this to happen, Wendy. Sometimes feelings change." I was going to tell you after. After what? After the wedding. After our honeymoon. I replied, my voice rising. He was attempting to find the appropriate moment, his voice carrying the studied smoothness he used at difficult client meetings. The lunch bag fell from my grasp. I trusted you both. Both of you. Odora had the grace to look embarrassed. It just happened, Becca. We tried to fight it. Don't call me Becca. The childhood nickname felt like another offense. And nothing just happens. For 5 months, you made choices. Every secret call, every lie, every time you looked me in the eye, knowing what you were doing. Darius clicked the intercom. Morel, please come in. Morel entered moments later, carefully avoiding my eyes. Please escort Wendy out. She's upset. I'm escorting myself out, I answered, my pride intact, but feeling utterly devastated inside. You deserve each other. In the elevator, the tears finally flowed. By the time I got to my car, I was sobbing so hard I could barely breathe. The drive home was a haze. I just remember calling my mother from my apartment, curled up on the bathroom floor, unable to form meaningful sentences through my tears. My mother and father arrived within an hour, using their emergency key when I couldn't bring myself to open the door. Mother held me while I told them everything. Father paced the living room, his face turning redder with each detail. I'll kill him, he muttered, his hand over his heart. Kelsey, your blood pressure, Mother admonished, though her own face was equally furious. The next few days were a blur of pain. Mother helped me contact vendors to cancel wedding arrangements while Father handled the financial elements. I returned the engagement ring to Darius's apartment, leaving it with the doorman. I couldn't stand seeing him. Odora had already moved in. Most of her things were there, family photos arranged on shelves that used to hold mine. Darius's email about distributing our shared assets was coldly efficient, stating that Odora had assisted him in cataloging my remaining items. The betrayal went further than I had thought. Through common friends, I discovered that they had been meeting covertly whenever I worked late or traveled for business. Odora had purposely pursued him, making excuses to visit him alone, sending texts and images while I wasn't around. The scandal spread quickly through our social circles. Some acquaintances supported me, others backed Darius, noting his power in the business sector. Several people admitted they had spotted Darius and Odora flirting, but chose not to intervene. Their cowardice hurt almost as much as the treachery itself. During those dark months, my mother became my lifeline. She brought me food when I couldn't eat, listened to my crying rants, and stayed the night when the loneliness became unbearable. She regularly tried to mediate between Odora and me, asking us both to family dinners that inevitably ended in tense silence or bitter fights. Odora snapped during one of these dinners when I refused to pass her the salt. You always got everything first, Wendy, she hissed. The grades, the job, the apartment. For once, I got something before you did. My fiancé wasn't a prize to be won, I said, my voice cracking. He was the man I loved and trusted. Mom put down her fork. Odora Marie Thompson, apologize to your sister right now. For what? Being honest. Darius chose me. He loves me now. I stood, a napkin on my plate. I can't do this anymore. Mom, I'm sorry. That was the last family dinner I ever attended with Odora. The stress of his daughter's feud exacerbated father's cardiac problems, requiring medication adjustments and more doctor appointments. Mother aged visibly in those months, the lines around her eyes deepening as she desperately tried to keep her family together. 6 months after uncovering Darius and Odora's deception, I hit rock bottom. My therapist diagnosed me with depression and suggested medication. Work suffered as I struggled to focus, and I eventually lost a large client after a terrible presentation where I burst into tears. My supervisor recommended a leave of absence, but I realized that staying in Boston, where memories lurked around every corner, would only deepen my pain. When a marketing director position opened at our Chicago branch, I applied immediately. The interview went surprisingly well, my desperate need for change perhaps translating as enthusiasm. 2 weeks later, I got the offer. My mother helped me pack my apartment, meticulously wrapping photos and souvenirs in tissue paper. As we sorted through my belongings, deciding what to keep and what to donate, she brought up the elephant in the room. "Will you ever consider forgiving Odora?" she asked, sealing a box with packing tape. I continued folding sweaters without looking up. "I don't know, Mom. Not now. Maybe not ever. Forgiveness isn't about them deserving it," she explained quietly. "It's about freeing yourself. I am freeing myself. I'm moving to Chicago." Mother sat beside me on the bed and took my hands. "Running away isn't the same as healing, sweetheart." Tears filled my eyes. "I need space to even begin to heal. Can you understand that?" She nodded and pulled me into a tight hug. "Promise you'll call. Promise you won't shut us out completely." "I promise." Saying goodbye to my parents was harder than I thought. Father held me longer than usual, his voice rough with emotion. "You show 'em, kiddo. Build a life so good they'll choke on their regret." My first few weeks in Chicago were lonely, filled with doubt. My small apartment felt sterile and foreign. I worked long hours to avoid coming home to empty rooms, eating takeout at my desk, falling asleep exhausted every night. Then came the news that twisted the knife even deeper. Mother called one Sunday morning, her voice hesitant. "Wendy, I feel you should hear this from me rather than social media. Odora and Darius got married yesterday." Darius's business ties ensured coverage for the small civil ceremony, which was published in Boston Magazine's Society pages. The accompanying photo showed them beaming outside the courthouse, Odora in a simple white dress with my former engagement ring proudly visible on her finger. That night was my absolute low point. I drank an entire bottle of wine alone, scrolled through old photos of Darius and me, and cried until my eyes swelled shut. I called in sick for work the next day, unable to face the world. But something shifted during those lonely hours. As the early light trickled through my blinds, I made a decision. This would be the last day I let them control my happiness. I erased all images of Darius from my phone, blocked both him and Odora on social media, and took a long shower, picturing my pain dripping down the drain. At work, I refocused. My employer noticed the shift and assigned me to larger clients. I built a reputation for innovation and perseverance, earning respect in my new workplace. Maricel Rowan, our HR director, became my first genuine Chicago friend, introducing me to her book club. Through her, I met other women and slowly, carefully, built a social circle. Maricel kept trying to set me up on dates, but I declined every time. The idea of romantic vulnerability still unnerved me. 4 months after moving to Chicago, I was assigned to represent our company at a technology conference in San Francisco. On the second evening, at a business dinner with potential clients, I sat next to Zevian Forrester, a tech investor and entrepreneur who had recently relocated from Seattle. Zevian was different from Darius in every conceivable way. Where Darius was flamboyant and overtly appealing, Zevian was subtle, authentic. His quiet confidence and thought-provoking questions drew people in without demanding attention. When he spoke about his work, his enthusiasm was palpable, but never boastful. He asked for my card after dinner, and I handed it to him with no expectations. To my surprise, he emailed me the next morning, asking if I wanted to continue our discussion about digital marketing trends over coffee. Over the next 3 months, Zevian and I maintained a professional connection. He sent clients to my agency, and I connected him to my Chicago business contacts. Maricel noticed our regular, business lunches, and raised her eyebrows. "He likes you, Wendy," she teased. "And not just professionally. We're just colleagues, I insisted. Colleagues don't look at each other the way he looks at you. Zevian eventually invited me to dinner at a place unrelated to work. I panicked, nearly cancelled twice, before forcing myself to go. 20 minutes into our date, while discussing our favorite books, I had a full-blown panic attack. My hands shook, breathing became difficult, and tears filled my eyes. Rather than being ashamed or upset, Zevian sat with me, talking gently until my breathing returned to normal. He drove me home, no pressure, no questions. The next day, flowers arrived at my office with a note, no pressure, no expectations. I hope you're feeling better, Zevian. That evening, I called him and told him everything about Darius and Odora. He listened without interruption, then shared his own story of heartache from a previous marriage, which ended when his wife left him for his business partner, taking half of their joint firm in the divorce. Broken trust leaves scars, he remarked. Anyone worth your time will understand that healing isn't linear. Over the next few months, we started by building the foundation of our friendship. Zevian never asked for more than I could give, respecting my boundaries while always being present. For our 5th date, he made dinner at his apartment instead of taking me to a crowded restaurant that might trigger my anxiety. When terror flared up, he knew exactly how to help me through it. For the first time since Darius, I began to believe that trust could be rebuilt. 1 year after arriving in Chicago, I barely recognized myself. My promotion to senior marketing director came with a corner office overlooking the river. My circle of friends had grown beyond Maricel to include several close confidants. And most surprisingly, I had fallen deeply in love with Zevian. Unlike Darius's flamboyant wooing, Zevian's love revealed itself in steady, thoughtful ways. He remembered small details, my preference for oat milk in my coffee, the true crime podcasts I listened to. He honored my independence while providing unwavering support. Most significantly, he never compared me to others or tried to change me. I met Zevian's sister, Giselle, during her visit from Portland. We quickly bonded, swapping numbers and forming our own connection, independent of Zevian. She shared stories of their upbringing in Seattle, painting a picture of the young boy who grew into the man I was falling in love with. My contact with my parents remained distant. I called Mom weekly, skillfully steering conversations away from Odora. Father occasionally joined, his gruff voice softening as he told me how proud he was of my new beginnings. I visited twice that year, timing my trips when Odora and Darius would be away. Mother offered occasional updates on them. Their marriage appeared perfect on social media, with Odora uploading photos of luxurious vacations and charity galas. Mother said they had purchased a large property on Beacon Hill and were undergoing substantial renovations. Odora occasionally inquires about you, Mother said during one phone call. What do you tell her? I asked, stirring pasta sauce on my stove. That you're doing well. That you're building a new life. Does she ever express regret? Mother sighed her familiar sigh. She gets quiet when your name comes up. My therapy continued in Chicago, my new therapist helping me process the betrayal and establish healthy relationship patterns. I learned to identify my triggers and communicate effectively. The nightmares involving Darius and Odora gradually faded. In June, Zevian surprised me with a weekend getaway to Michigan's wine region. We stayed at a charming bed and breakfast surrounded by vineyards. We spent afternoons wine tasting and evenings watching the sunset over Lake Michigan. For the first time in years, I felt entirely present and genuinely happy, free from the weight of past betrayal. On our final evening, strolling through an early summer blooming area at the Chicago Botanic Garden, Zevian paused beneath a trellis covered in climbing roses. "Wendy," he said, taking both my hands in his. "This past year, knowing you has been the greatest gift of my life." When he knelt and pulled a ring box from his pocket, panic flashed briefly. Images from Darius's proposal threatened to eclipse this moment. But staring into Zevian's eyes, all I saw was sincerity and profound affection. I'm not asking for an answer today, he continued, sensing my uncertainty. I just want you to know that whenever you're ready, whether that's tomorrow or next year, I'll be here. My eyes filled with tears, but not from fear or agony. Yes, I whispered. I'm ready now. The ring looked nothing like the extravagant diamond Darius had given me. A simple emerald with tiny diamonds on either side. Delicate and subtle, much like our love. That night, I called my parents to tell them the news. Mother cried happy tears. He sounds wonderful, darling. When can we meet him? Soon, I assured her, very soon. We planned a small wedding for 30 guests at a historic Chicago venue. At Mother's request, I sent an invitation to Eudora, more as a gesture of healing than an expectation of attendance. Her email reply was quick and curt. Congratulations on the engagement. Unfortunately, Darius and I have other engagements on that day. Best wishes for the future. Mother was disappointed, but not shocked. Give her time, Wendy. This is progress compared to where you both were. Our wedding day arrived, intimate and joyful, with my parents, new friends, and Zevian's relatives there. Father walked me down the aisle, whispering, I haven't seen you this happy in years, kiddo. Zevian's vows reflected our journey. Wendy, I promise to remember that love is both strong and fragile, requiring care and commitment every day. I promise to be worthy of the trust you've given me, knowing how precious and hard-won that gift is. We built our life together in Chicago, purchasing a brownstone and renovating it. My career progressed, eventually leading to a vice president post. Zevian's investment firm expanded, focused on female-led technology startups. During a dinner with business associates, I learned something that connected the past and present. A venture capitalist acknowledged working with Darius years ago. Rowan, yeah. He and Forrester had quite the rivalry in the angel investing space about 7 years back. Forrester backed the right startup. Rowan backed the competitor. Forrester's pick got acquired for millions. Rowan went bankrupt. Later that night, I asked Zevian about it. I was going to tell you eventually, he confessed. I knew who you were when we met at that conference. Not the details of what happened, but that you had been engaged to Rowan. Why didn't you say anything? I wanted you to know me for me, not as someone connected to your past. I wasn't angry. Somehow, the cosmic symmetry felt appropriate. 2 years into our marriage, we started trying for a baby. Months passed without success, prompting fertility specialists and uncomfortable conversations. Zevian was my rock through every disappointment and medical procedure, holding me through tears, reminding me that family could take many forms. Then came the tragic news of Mother's cancer diagnosis. Zevian and I flew to Boston right away, meeting with physicians and guiding my parents through treatment options. Mother put on a brave face, but her cancer was aggressive and had spread. I took a leave from work to care for her, temporarily returning to my childhood home. Zevian flew in every weekend to support both me and my increasingly frail father. Mother and I had many meaningful conversations about life, love, and family in her last weeks. One evening, as I adjusted her pillows, she mentioned Eudora. I wish you girls could find peace with each other, she murmured, her voice weak but determined. Life is too short for such distance between sisters. I know, Mom, I said, holding back tears. Promise me you'll try, Wendy. Not for her, but for yourself. And maybe a little bit for your old mother. I promised, unsure if I could keep it, but desperate to give her peace. Mother died quietly 3 days later, with Zevian, father, and I at her bedside. I immediately called Eudora, our first direct contact in years. Mom's gone, I stated when she answered. Her quick inhale was the only sound for long seconds. I'll be there in an hour, she finally said, her voice breaking. We arrived at our parents' house and exchanged brief, awkward hugs before turning our focus to father and funeral arrangements. The real test would be during the funeral itself, where years of pain and hatred would collide with fresh sadness and Mother's ultimate wish. The morning of Mother's burial was dark and drizzling, fitting the solemn occasion. I stood in front of the mirror in my childhood bedroom, adjusting my black dress, wondering how I'd get through the day. Zevian stood behind me, handsome in his dark suit, gently placing his hands on my shoulders. "I'm right beside you today," he murmured, meeting my gaze in the reflection. "Whatever happens." Father sat at the kitchen table, staring at his untouched coffee. The preceding week had hollowed him out, his tall frame bent in despair. At 72, he appeared to have aged a decade since Mother's diagnosis. "Ready, Dad?" I whispered softly, patting his shoulder. He nodded, rising slowly. "Mom always said, funerals aren't for the dead, they're for the living." Never understood that until now. When we arrived, the funeral home was already filled with extended family and friends. I stayed close to Father, greeting everyone with forced smiles and accepting condolences from people I barely knew. Cousins from California, Mother's college companions, neighbors from my parents' 40-year home. "You look just like Clara at your age," my great-aunt Cheryl murmured, caressing my cheek. "She would be proud of the woman you've become." "How have you been, dear?" Mother's friend June asked. "Clara mentioned you moved away." "Chicago, was it?" "Yes, almost 5 years now," I said, not mentioning my sister's betrayal as the reason for the move. As I took Father to his place in the front row, Zevian on his other side, a murmur rippled through the crowd. I turned to see Eudora and Darius enter, prompting heads to turn and whispers to spread. Eudora wore an elegant black dress that accentuated her tiny frame, with diamond earrings catching the light. Darius looked uncomfortable in his well-fitted suit, his arm around my sister's waist in a show of support. Her left hand was conspicuously placed on her pocketbook, making the huge diamond engagement ring and wedding band impossible to overlook. Father stiffened beside me. "Kelsey, breathe," I whispered, frightened for his heart. They made their way forward, pausing to chat with other attendees. I kept my gaze fixed on the enormous portrait of Mother displayed alongside her closed casket, her warm smile calming some of my nerves. They eventually reached the front. Eudora hugged Father, who returned it stiffly. Darius shook his hand and received only a brief nod in return. "Wendy," Eudora remarked, turning to me with a look I couldn't quite read. "It's been a long time." "Yes," I said simply, not trusting myself to say more. Darius nodded hesitantly. "Sorry for your loss." Zevian had moved away to speak with the funeral director, leaving me alone with them. Eudora seized the opportunity. "I need to speak with you privately," she explained, gesturing to a side room. Against my better judgment, I followed her, hoping to avoid a scene at Mother's burial. The small room only had a couple chairs and a box of tissues, clearly meant for mourners who needed private moments. Eudora closed the door behind us. Up close, I noticed small creases around her eyes that her expensive makeup couldn't hide. "You look thin," she said, her gaze scrutinizing me. "Grief does that," I answered plainly. She fiddled with her ring, twisting it around her finger. "Darius and I bought a summer house on Cape Cod last month. 8 bedrooms, private beach access. We're considering starting a family soon. Darius's company just acquired 2 startups, and we're renovating the 3rd floor for a nursery." "Congratulations," I murmured, my voice devoid of emotion. "Is there something specific you wanted to discuss about the funeral arrangements?" Her smile became harsh. "I just thought you might want to know how well we're doing." "Poor you, still alone at 38. I got the man, the money, and the mansion." The familiar pain flared quickly, then vanished. 6 years ago, her words would have crushed me. Today, they sounded sad, forlorn. I grinned. A genuine grin. Have you met my husband yet? I opened the door to find Zevian standing nearby. Come meet my sister. As Zevian entered the room, Darius came in behind him, apparently having observed our discussion. When the men's eyes met, Darius's face turned pale. Forrester, he murmured, his confidence draining away. Rowan. Zevian's tone was professional but chilly. It's been 7 years? Not since Macintosh acquired Initech instead of your client Compervy, right? Darius swallowed visibly. You two are married. 2 wonderful years now, I replied, sliding my hand into Zevian's. Zevian Forrester, Eudora said softly. As in Forrester Investments. The same, Zevian responded. Wendy and I met at a tech conference in San Francisco. Darius tried to regain his composure. Forrester, we should catch up sometime. I've been meaning to reach out about potential collaborations. My schedule is quite full, Zevian said politely but firmly. But you can contact my office if you'd like. The funeral director appeared and informed us that the service was about to begin. As we returned to the main room, whispers followed us. The connection between Zevian and Darius was well known in business circles. We had scarcely taken our seats when father clutched his chest, his face contorted with pain. Dad! I shouted as Zevian instantly called for assistance. We relocated father to a private room, and the funeral was temporarily postponed. A doctor among the attendees checked him, saying it was most likely stress rather than another heart attack. Eudora followed us, genuine concern on her face. Is he okay? Should we call an ambulance? Her voice trembled slightly. The doctor says he's stable, I said, taken aback by her truthfulness. Just overwhelmed. For 20 minutes, we sat there in awkward silence, linked only by our concern for father. When he insisted on continuing with the service, we returned to the main chamber, the brief crisis resulting in an unexpected truce. The funeral was both beautiful and tragic. I delivered a eulogy emphasizing mother's kindness, courage, and steadfast love for her family. When Eudora rose to speak after me, she hesitated after only a few sentences, her eyes welling with tears. Without thinking, I stepped to her side and rested my hand on her back. It's okay, I said quietly. Take your time. She composed herself and finished her homage to our mother with anecdotes from our childhood that elicited tears and soft laughter from the audience. As we laid mother to rest in the cemetery, a gentle rain poured. I noticed Darius standing apart from the rest of the group, checking his watch constantly. Eudora stayed by father's side, her previous swagger replaced by sincere anguish. The reception at my parents' house was filled with people bringing casseroles and sharing memories. Darius drank considerably, his uneasiness palpable as numerous business associates engaged Zevian in animated conversation. I overheard snippets of Darius's company failing with recent acquisitions and wondered if Eudora's bravado was a mask for financial problems. Throughout the day, I maintained the dignity mother would have expected, focusing on supporting father and honoring her memory rather than dwelling on old scars. As visitors began to leave, I noticed Eudora watching me from across the room, her look unreadable, but seemingly softer than before. The day after the funeral, Zevian had an important board meeting in Chicago. Are you sure you'll be okay if I go? He said, preparing his overnight bag. I can reschedule. Dad needs help sorting through Mom's things, I explained. I should stay a few more days. I'll be fine. After dropping Zevian off at the airport, I returned to my parents' house to find father sitting in mother's garden with a photo album open on his lap. She labeled everything, he explained, showing me mother's neat handwriting beneath each photo. Said, someday we'd appreciate knowing who is who. That afternoon, I started the unpleasant chore of sorting through mother's closet. Each dress evoked memories. The blue one from my college graduation, the flowery print she wore to Sunday brunches, the elegant gray she chose for my engagement party. I found myself talking to her as I worked, telling her about my life in Chicago, my job, and my happiness with Sevian. In her nightstand drawer, I found a soft, leather-bound journal. Mother had kept a journal. Inside, for the past 10 years. Many entries addressed her daughters, her longing for our reunification, her anguish about the schism between us. The last entry, dated only 2 weeks before her death, read, "My greatest regret is leaving with my girls still estranged. Clara always fixed things, but I couldn't fix this. I pray they find their way back to each other somehow." I was wiping away tears when the doorbell rang. Looking out the front window, I saw Odora standing alone on the porch. No sign of Darius's car in the driveway. Father had gone to his brother's house for dinner, leaving me alone with my sister. I opened the door, not sure what to expect. "Hi," she said simply. "Can I come in?" In the kitchen, I made coffee while Odora sat quietly at the table. She looked different without Darius by her side. Smaller. Less performative. "Where's Darius?" I finally asked, setting a mug in front of her. "At home. He doesn't know I'm here." She wrapped her hands around the mug but didn't sip. The stillness stretched between us. Years of unspoken words creating a tangible barrier. "I'm sorry about yesterday," she finally said. "What I said in that room at the funeral home, it was cruel and completely inappropriate." I nodded, acknowledging her apology but not immediately accepting it. "I saw Mom's journal," she added. "Dad showed it to me last night. Her last wish was for us to reconcile." "I found it too," I said. "But reconciliation requires more than just proximity, Odora. It needs honesty." She looked up, tears in her eyes. "You want honesty? Here's honesty. I'm miserable, Wendy. I have been, almost since the beginning." The dam cracked, and words poured forth between sobs. Darius had changed quickly after their wedding, becoming domineering and critical. His company had been failing for years, each new acquisition was an attempt to save a sinking ship. The mansions, cars, and holidays were all financed with rising debt. Their marriage was a carefully crafted front for business connections and social status. "He monitors my spending, checks my phone, questions my every move," she told me. "The Darius you knew doesn't exist anymore." "Maybe he never did." "Why stay?" I inquired. "Shame," she replied promptly. "How could I admit what I'd done to you? Destroyed our family for something that turned out to be a mirage. And then there's the prenup. I leave with nothing." I moved Mother's journal across the table. "Read the rest of her entries." Odora shed more tears as she read. She finally looked up, her face raw with emotion. She knew. She saw through everything. "Mom always did." I agreed. "I have hated myself for years," Odora murmured. "Every time Mom mentioned you, she'd gently highlight your accomplishments. I felt the weight of what I'd done. Wendy, I'm intending to leave him. I have been privately consulting a lawyer." My emotions were a complex mix of vindication and unexpected tenderness. The sister who had caused me so much pain was now facing consequences I wouldn't wish on anyone. "I don't expect forgiveness," she continued. "I don't deserve it. But I needed to tell you the truth before I blew up my life again." We spent the next several hours together, going through Mother's possessions, sharing sad and loving memories. Odora remembered Mother teaching us how to bake cookies, and how she never mixed the different batches because I preferred chocolate chip and Odora chose sugar cookies. Remember how she used to leave notes in our lunchboxes? Odora remarked, laughing through tears. "Different messages every day." I nodded. She never repeated one. We weren't instantly healed. The wounds were too deep for immediate closure. But as dusk set, something shifted between us, Mother's love forming a delicate bridge over years of hurt. What will you do? I inquired as Odora prepared to depart. File for divorce when my lawyer says the timing is right. Rent a small apartment. Start over. She was standing at the entrance. What about you? Will you go back to Chicago? Yes, my life is there now, with Zevian. You seem happy, she said, more as a statement than a question. I am truly happy. I'm glad, she added. One of us should be. We exchanged quick, awkward hugs before she left. It wasn't forgiveness yet, but it was a start. Back in Chicago, I settled into life in Zevian's brownstone and a fulfilling career. 6 months after my mother's passing, I learned I was pregnant. After years of trying, the joy was tinged by regret, knowing mother wouldn't meet her grandchild, but I sensed her presence in peaceful moments. Odora and I maintained careful touch via phone calls. She had filed for divorce and relocated to a modest apartment, working at a small marketing agency. The gossip and censure she encountered in Boston's social circles were difficult, but she appeared determined to rebuild authentically. The path that brought me here was not one I would have chosen. Losing Darius seemed like the end of my world, but it was actually the start of a far better one. With Zevian, I discovered not just love, but partnership, respect, and unfailing support. His success never overshadowed mine. Instead, it complemented it, and we grew stronger together. Mother had been right in saying that forgiveness is for ourselves rather than for others. The weight of wrath and bitterness had gradually lifted, allowing me to see my past clearly and my future with optimism. Although the wounds lingered, they no longer defined me. As I sat in our nursery, Zevian painting the walls a soothing green, I thought about the things I would eventually teach our child. How loss can lead to finding. How endings make space for new beginnings. How our most difficult experiences frequently lead us to our real path. My life had become richer and more authentic than I could have dreamed during those sad days 7 years ago. Not because of the betrayal, but because it forced me to rebuild with greater insight and purpose. So, that's my story. It's been a wild ride, and sometimes I still can't believe it all happened. But it taught me so much about strength, forgiveness, and what truly matters. I'm curious, what do you think? If you were me, how would you have handled Odora's confession? Let me know in the comments below.